Hi, and welcome to the Five Spheres of Fit. I am Sabrina, the president of the Five Spheres, and I'm here with Noel, the founder and creative director. The Five Spheres is a holistic lifestyle strategy that constantly evolves with you. Your five spheres are the physical, the mental, the financial, the social, and the educational spheres. Noel, recently you brought up an interesting point. We were talking about quotes on social media.
Yep.
Those you're scrolling through and you see a really good quote, you repost it, and you were talking about how that can be both positively and negatively affecting our lives and each of our spheres. So take it away.
Yeah. So it was just kind of a curious thought because my social media is now sort of flooded with a lot of these things. I think doing this work with Five Spheres has kind of opened some channels that I think were open before, but now I'm seeing more of it. So a lot of what I would say inspirational quotes, phrases, people offering opinions in sort of like short form, maybe something about their life. And it's always typically inspirational. But Sabrina, what it got me thinking about was what are people utilizing for inspiration and motivation? Because I do think it's kind of interesting that we see a lot of that now. And it's just what's effective and what's real, and are people understanding what they're actually trying to espouse to, whether it's an inspirational quote or some sort of motivational phrase.
Yeah. We did not grow up with social media, our generation, Gen X. And so it's interesting to see our 12-year-old daughter, who's Generation Alpha, come to me and say, Mom, I woke up and I read these quotes I saved on Pinterest. And, it just put me in such a great mood. And they do put you in a great mood. But sometimes there are some negative impacts.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd like to, talk about a few of them when you're ready. And I could share the quote and you could tell me what you think about it.
Yeah. So one thing I want to say is that, so when you utilize the platform, the Five Spheres of Fit platform, we want you to be encouraged. We want you to use whatever resources are available to you to find inspiration, to continue on that pathway to a better you. So to be the best version of yourself. It's okay to take support in whatever forms that you can, and particularly in inspirational quotes, motivational sayings, even speeches that you might say. I always allude to the famous basketball coach who passed away of cancer, Jim Valvano, and his speech for the V Foundation, which he launched. And I'm always get teary-eyed thinking about it because it's so inspirational. But yeah, let's take a look at some quotes and we could talk about them and then kind of share with our audience maybe how to discern through what's really truly going to be effective for you, and maybe something that might even hold you up.
And then which one is kind of like quote unquote fake news?
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Because when it comes to a physical sphere, educational sphere, we've talked about politics on this podcast before. There's a lot of fake stuff on social media, and you really need to fact check. You need to go to reputable sources to make sure,
even who said it.
That's what I was going to say. Some of these quotes. One time I had reposted a quote from Eminem, and I was like, did he actually say that? And I went and checked, and I was like, okay, he said it. I could post it now.
I can recall years ago, one of my few interactions with a friend on Facebook. He was a Border Patrol agent, fairly conservative guy, and he had put up a quote from what he believed was George Washington. And it was a quote that when I read it, I said, well, this, see, as a history major, I thought, well, this is kind of inconsistent with what George Washington would likely have said. And so I did some research and I let him know. And it was kind of cool, Sabrina, is he came back on social media, on Facebook, and just told the world, look, I stand corrected. George Washington did not in fact say this. So to your point, you do have to know whether what you're reading is in fact accurate. Even if you like it, make sure that it's accurate. I mean, I've seen religious quotes that are not religious quotes coming from the Christian Bible.
Because you're believing in that to help you, to find encouragement, to find motivation. Why would you believe something that wasn't actually said?
Yeah, not only that, but if you repeat that, now you look kind of foolish if you didn't fact check. And people are like, well, Sabrina, that's no one, this person didn't say that, or this is not something that this particular religion would have agreed.
And this is in all five spheres, there's so many like physical health quotes out there. Well, let's go through a few and then let's see what you think. Okay. How about everyone has the same 24 hours? What are your thoughts on that one?
I love that. But what I don't love about it, and this would be my first point as we sort of delve into this, is immediately comparison.
Yes.
So when we look at social media in particular, because I know a lot of our audience members utilize social media as their primary medium to communicate other than phone and text. And so when I see the basis of the quote, push towards that comparison of life, that's a little bit of a slippery slope, a little bit dangerous, because again, we encourage you at Five Spheres to move away from that. It's about your subjective need within your five spheres. So what may work for someone may not work for you.
And where you are at that point in your life, because where I am today may not be where I am a year from now. So where I am today, I myself may not have the same 24 hours a day today than I will a year from now.
As a mother of a 12-year-old in your later 40s, your life is completely different than a young woman who may be in her, I'll say a woman, because you're still young, a woman who's in her mid or late 20s. The concerns and considerations may be very different. That's not to say they might not have a child, but their concerns may be different. Their life experience and wisdom that they've attained at that point is going to lead them in different directions. And so 24 hours in their day might look totally different than 24 hours in yours.
I had the same thoughts on that one.
I think that's really important.
Study so hard that Dior is like Sheen to you.
Yeah, I think this might come from our daughter, a 12-year-old daughter.
She actually follows this one. So what are your thoughts? I don't think I've ever heard your thoughts on this one.
What I like about it, and I don't know that and I'm biased, but in reality, I don't know that there's anything I don't really like about it. I think it is taking concepts that are part of your life, comparing them to say, well, look, if you want your life to be this, you got to do this, right? Yeah. So you want Dior, work hard, and you'll have that sort of thing. I like it. I like the recognition of the need to put in effort to get what you want.
She uses this quote to motivate herself in school.
I don't know what 12-year-old needs Dior, but I like that she has utilized some branding that she's familiar with.
And I think she knows it's not necessarily Dior, but it's when she explained it to, she explained it to me, and she said, that I could go out and, Sheen, although, it's trendy and it's inexpensive, it's very affordable. Yeah. So for her, it's make everything work so hard that your financial sphere is so strong that Dior is just so affordable for you.
Yep. And I go right back to the basis of the quote, which is about you putting in effort, you putting in the work to get what you want. It could be any brand, it could be anything in particular, but the fact that she's utilizing that as a sense of motivation for her to go after it by working hard, I just love it. I mean, I don't think there's any better way to personally motivate yourself than to use quotes like that. I can harken back to the great Michael Jordan, who oftentimes, and he has said this over and over again, he would create on his own these ideas of things that other players or coaches or whomever had said about him that were negative. And he would use that as inspiration to go out on the basketball court and kick some butt. And I thought that was so funny because he literally would make these things up. They weren't actually said by some of these. Now, some were, but many, many were not. Yeah. And that was his way of motivating himself. It's like, hey, my baseline is I'm going to work hard. But boy, if I do it with some inspiration, sky's the limit, right? 6 world championships, scoring titles, defensive player of the year, all these things. So yeah, I love the concept. I actually really love the basis of that quote.
All right, I'm going to give you 2 more. Good vibes only. And before I forget, I don't know who said any of these. These are just some that were either sent to me or I saw on Google. Yep. So I don't know who said this, but good vibes only, I think that's a common one.
So one of the things I want to point out is in our world today, we are always constantly looking for that instant gratification. So any comments, whether inspirational, motivational, what have you, if they're short and sweet, all the better. They're easily digestible and certainly should be relatively easy to understand. Good vibes only is also, Sabrina, a great mental sphere way of telling the world, I've got boundaries. So don't bring to me negative energy, perhaps. Don't bring your dirty laundry to me. It's just good vibes only. I mean, how could you not love that as it's bumper sticker material?
Yes. I think it lacks context, but it gives you enough context to just give you that quick reminder.
But would you
hey, good vibes only. Okay, good. Oh yeah, reminder, a reminder. It's kind of like Shanti, peaceful soul,
Yep.
reminder.
And that's another great point, which is, I think motivational quotes, things of inspiration are important in that they are the reminders of you being on a path to better, you being on a path for more, you being on the path for the best version of you. And so if you keep that in mind as you're sort of seeking out these inspirational quotes or motivations, that they be specific to you. And they also, like you said, tell the truth, right? They're written by the person that you pretend to say that they're written by. And that they have some connection to like your ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And in the 5 series, we talk about goal planning all the time. And I think this is just one facet of creating a goal, is making sure you have the appropriate support, and that can be in the form of inspirational and motivational quotes.
But you want to make sure you're using it as a facet for goal setting, because I can tell you how many times I've seen on social media someone who's constantly posting these quotes, and you can tell when someone's going through something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When someone starts posting the social sphere quotes, you know, someone has screwed them over, whether it's a partner, a friend, a family member. And then you have the financial sphere quotes, and you're like, but they probably had like bad investment, or they're broke, they can't pay their bills. So, instead of just using it to vent, use it to motivate you. Sure. And yes, they're great because they bring people together, right? You get that comfort, like, hey, you're so, I can't think of a social sphere quote right now, but one of them where you're like,
surround yourself with the people who bring you up. That would be like a social sphere quote.
And then everyone's like, yes, girl, I got you. I'm here for you, which is wonderful. Yeah. But that moment is fleeting. And what you want is change in that social sphere. So use these quotes as motivation.
Yeah. I think you brought up a good point. And this is something that we should point out to our listeners too, Sabrina, is when someone is sharing a quote, and it may be a quote that's a bit aggressive, they may be doing that as a form of validation, emotional validation.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree with you.
So when I think of folks in their mental sphere, that may be bleeding into maybe a social sphere issue, as oftentimes it is, they may not have the tools or capability to really define in words how they feel. So then they see these quotes and they're like, oh, that's me. That's how I feel. Like, don't take anyone's, whatever the quote is, right? But that concept of like, I don't know how to say this right. I mean, how many times have we talked to someone and they're like, man, I don't really know how to explain this. This is how I feel, but I don't know how to put it into words, sort of thing. So I think that ability to emotionally validate themselves, and also just kind of tell people where they're at, but do it in a way where like they don't feel quite as vulnerable. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, I'm down in the dumps now, but don't mess with me type of that, that
That's
kind of
what I said.
approach.
It's like
yeah. So I like the willingness to be vulnerable to the extent that you're sharing how you feel. I think that's something that's really important for so many of us, because it really guides and dictates how we're going to be successful in all of our 5 spheres. I've always said, if you are not physically well, you're less likely to address any of the other 4 spheres.
100%.
By same token, if you're not mentally well, Sabrina, the same thing.
100%. Yeah. We've seen that. Research proves that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Next quote. When life gives you lemons, make orange juice and leave the world wondering how you did it. Another one presented by our 12-year-old daughter.
flipped on its head, right? Like, so it almost makes no logical sense, but it piques the curiosity of like, whoa, what are you working on? Like, it might even fall into that category. One that I like is nothing is impossible. And it's telling the world that, like, in some way or another, you're figuratively limitless. Like, you can do anything. And what I like about that is when we start to believe in ourselves, we will try to do anything to get ourselves in a better position than we were before. And this kind of like, it's a unique way of saying, something that we all see that, they give you lemons, make lemonade, that makes things better, right? No matter the cards you're dealt, make it better. This is like, I don't know, make it better, but blow them away, right? Blow them away. Give them like that, like level up, like you're leveling up. So I like that quote. Probably not the way I would say it. Yeah. But I like that. It's pretty cool for a 12-year-old.
Yeah. She didn't come up with it, but she really was inspired. Inspired by it.
I like it.
Other than quotes, there's also people that we have never met that we find inspiration in.
Good point.
in their talks on social media. They may do like a minute, 2 minute post. And I'm not sure if you want to talk about it, but I'm just going to ask the question and then, okay. And the founder of Tom's, I believe he is,
Blake Mykowski.
Yeah. So you sent me a video of his, and in the video, he talks about how a year ago he was going through severe depression and how he is just so happy today and what got him there. And you found it inspirational and you sent it to me and you said, you need to watch this. You know, he is the founder of Tom's. And my gosh, you could feel the joy and happiness in like just exuding from this video. And it was a 2-minute video that I couldn't believe he was there in the opposite side of his mental sphere a year ago. Yeah. And what I appreciated was his vulnerability in sharing that, and how many people it could help.
It was incredible. And for those of you listening, you know, I will be very forthcoming with this and very honest. You know, I've dealt with significant anxiety and depression for most of my life. I've been able to, I guess, on some level, manage it effectively because I did learn about some of the tools and resources, and I had been in therapy in the past. When I came across Blake's posting, the thing that struck me immediately was I knew about him. And I was very in awe of him. I think he's a wonderful human, a great citizen of the world, so to speak. This is the founder of Tom's Shoes, wound up selling, I think, half of it to a large hedge fund or investment company and walked away with a ton of money. And he's been doing great things with that money. And I know he went through a lot of personal changes. And as a result of that, I thought, oh, these are great stories to hear, because a guy so successful, what you think he has the whole world in the palm of his hand, is dealing with things that you couldn't even imagine unless you were in a situation like that. And then you could imagine, you could see I could see where the struggle comes from. I also found it interesting too, that he's also we're the exact same age. One of his quotes, and I'm not going to verbatim because I don't want to misquote him, but it was something to the effect that you want to do something in the world that's going to help people. I was raised that way. Mm-hmm. So that resonated with me in particular. And so him being able to share that, Sabrina, was in and of itself motivational. To the outset of this podcast, we talked about whether it's a quote or a phrase or like a story. And his was a story. His was a meaningful story with great depth and substance that I think will probably, and it's helped so many, because I've gone back to the post, and like, I don't know how many thousands or millions of people have commented, but he was like so blown away that he made another post about how thankful he was.
You know, so many people think that if, you know, you have all the money in the world, that will bring you happiness. You know, you have that strong financial sphere. And what people are forgetting is you could have a financially strong financial sphere. I'm so tongue-tied today. And a strong financial sphere, but you may not be so strong in your physical sphere or mental sphere. Mm-hmm. And you know, even people with all the money in the world go through these challenges. And I don't know what specific strategy he used to get himself over that hurdle, but he did it, no matter what the strategy is. And I'm so thankful that he also motivated you and you went back. And
he posted a couple pictures specifically of like just his physical change. And I mean, he's in phenomenal shape. I mean, you wouldn't guess maybe that he was 49 years old or 49 years old, but he made that commitment. And I think another thing that resonated with me is I have said from the outset that the 5 spheres of fit asks for at all turns your 100% accountability. Positive change that happens in your life is really done through your systematic behaviors that you are 100% accountable for. It's not my trainer didn't show up at the right time, or my car wouldn't start, or I was too tired, or I had this obligation. You will make positive change when you make that commitment. And that accountability was all over the place in his post.
Yes,
and
I agree.
Thought that is what people need to see. This is a guy who's got hundreds of millions of dollars, and so everything's so easy for him. It's not so easy for him. Mm-hmm. It's not so easy for some people out there who have less money and who seem to have it all together, because sometimes people struggle with things that we don't even know about. Yeah. They're walking in shoes, no pun intended with him. They're walking in shoes that we've never walked in before. And that's a difficult conversation sometimes to have for people who are successful, because others just kind of poo-poo away like, you have money, you're fine. Well, what is fine really? So I loved it. I love that he put that vulnerability out there.
I do too. I do too. And it made me think that, although there are many, many negative aspects of social media, there are so many positive aspects as well. And what we need to do is take those positive resources and then use that to take action. Just like you said, be accountable, take action, use all that good information for yourself to find balance and find happiness.
Right. And then I would go one step further with that, Sabrina, as well, is when you are in the game of bettering yourself, is you recognize, like to your point, what is truth out there? What exists to actually help you and what is actually true that you're looking to help you? So do your research.
Yes.
Learn. If you are truly interested in something, you're going to ask the why and the how, right? Like it's even with people. You talk to someone, oh, this person's really interesting. Well, now I want to know how they did it. Now I want to know why they did it. That only happens when you're truly connected and you truly want better. So I would just encourage anyone who's looking for inspiration and motivation, go find it. It's a great additive tool for this betterment and to use for 5 Spheres of Fit. But just make sure that it's honest, it's true, and it says what you want and what you truly believe in. You don't have to be a tough guy out there all the time. Sometimes just telling the world that you're a little bit vulnerable and that maybe you need some help, that's pretty inspirational too, because that you may be motivating someone that you have never met in your life. And that's really something to be proud of.
I mean, what a better way to end it with those words. I can't say it better myself.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this is fun. I enjoyed this.
Me too. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Have a great day.